And thank you very much, everybody, for attending this afternoon session. We're scheduled for an hour. A little bit of housekeeping before we begin, however. If we can try to ask any questions that we may have as we go, if there's any thoughts or feedback, please do use the Q&A section that's available at the bottom of the screen. Christine will be monitoring them as we go throughout the webinar, and we will have a Q&A session at the end where we can look to answer those questions for everyone. Without further ado, I'll kind of introduce myself and introduce Katie, who's supporting today. Then we can get into the agenda and we can really begin having a chat around how can we manage complex asset rentals? How do we deal with some of the issues that come from complex asset rentals within NetSuite? And how can we get away from some of the manual processes that likely exist in your world at present? So I'm Jamie Adams. I'm the construction industry solutions consultant here at ProScope. My background, I spent many years working in industry in the built environment myself. And then for the last going on for a decade now, I've been in construction software supporting businesses like yourselves who are maybe directly in construction or in supporting and surrounding industries such as rental and equipment rentals as well. Katie, over to yourself to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. Hi, everyone. My name is Katie Clark, and I'm the solution consultant for North America here at ProScope. Excited to be one of your hosts today as we dive into ProScope's rental asset management solution. But before joining ProScope, I was a solution consultant at NetSuite, and that's where I specialized in project management solutions. So during that time, I worked closely with clients in the construction industry, helping them solve mostly operational challenges. And that experience gave me a strong foundation into the needs of construction and service-based businesses. So that really translates directly into the value we deliver here at ProScope. And today I focus solely on demoing our solution to teams for a smarter, more efficient way to manage their assets in NetSuite. So later in the session, we'll go through a real life demo use case to show how our rental module ties into the broader project lifecycle, so you can get more of a full picture of the impact ProScope can have. But yeah, I'll turn it back over to you, Jamie, so we can get started.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Katie. So in terms of the agenda today, we've got a couple of kind of key areas that we'd like to talk about. Really trying to share what we've learned from our clients, what we've learned from our customers, what we've learned from the conversations that Katie and I are having day in, day out with businesses in the rental space. So that hopefully there's some learnings and some takeaways that you guys can get from that before we get into the software demo. So broadly speaking, we're going to talk about kind of four key areas. So the current rental landscape. Spreadsheets, I know for a lot of people that might feel like a little bit of a dirty word, but you know, are they a necessary evil? A little bit of a kind of advanced spoiler, maybe not. But we'll talk about spreadsheets and their impact on utilization, traceability, bottom line, ultimately when it comes to making money from our rental fleet. We're going to talk about what does a single source of truth mean for a rentals business as well. It's a phrase that we hear thrown around a lot in construction, this idea of a single source of truth. But what does that mean for an equipment rentals business? You know, be that you're renting to plant to construction, or you might be renting subsea equipment and offshore equipment. What does that single source of truth really mean, and what does that look like? And then at the end, we're going to hand over to Katie, who I think did herself a little bit of a disservice with the introduction because she's also a rentals expert here from a product perspective. He'll be taking us through that demonstration. So when we talk about a kind of a single solution, what do we mean? Well, when we talk about that, we're really talking about how we get from having an asset that sits on our balance sheet, a depreciating asset, a capitalized asset. How do we get from there to having a sales contract with our customers, to billing that customer, receiving payment? How does that all come together? And that's why ProScope and NetSuite really combine to bridge that gap. So ProScope is a solution where 100% native to NetSuite. So any of you who are NetSuite users already who've joined the webinar today, When you see the software, it's going to look and feel and behave exactly like NetSuite does because it is NetSuite. All we're doing is we're enhancing that with the additional functionality that's needed for complex businesses like yourself. What that allows us to then do, and allows our thousands of users every day in the platform to then do, is to get really a true end-to-end view. You know, there's unbridled depth and breadth and depth of the solution, and they can really then begin to say, what's happening, what's going on with our fleet at every stage of that process. So they can really begin to no longer be reactive, but be proactive in their decision making. And ultimately, the benefits that come with that of impacting, you know, utilization and profitability, as we spoke about earlier on. So we've got over 5,000 users who use ProScope on a monthly basis. We'll go into this in a little bit more detail in a second. And our customers are a mixture of rentals, energy and utility businesses, and construction businesses. Some of our clients will be a hybrid of all three. You know, we work with everybody from kind of regional plant and equipment hiring businesses to those very specialist people renting things like ROVs to the offshore industry. So really broad depth of user base, but they all find that that simplification and streamlining of their processes makes life a million times easier for everybody on the ground and for their leadership when it comes to reporting as well. In terms of how we develop a product, though, as you may have gathered from the introductions, we come from a construction background, but we understand that our customers are really what drives that product growth and that product change. So we like to work with our customers on a at least quarterly basis to understand their ongoing requirements. And that then feeds into our continuous product updates and product investment cycle, be that enhanced functionality, modules, or even just ensuring that we comply with relevant legislation and that's always up to date as well. And what all of these things combined allow us to do is it allows the platform to be a modular approach. You'll see on the right-hand side that there's a lot of different elements called out, from kind of asset management to shipping and depreciation and utilization. That modular approach means that our customers can only pay for exactly what they need. You know, if you're not going to be handling your own shipment and export, then that's modularized to give you that freedom and flexibility. So, as I mentioned, just to kind of wrap up on who ProScope are and why we've got the credibility to speak about this, the platform itself, we've got 5,000 plus users logging into the platform. We're deployed in 10 regions. It's a true geographically agnostic platform. It's a global solution. So it doesn't matter if you're operating here in the UK, if you're operating in the UAE, or if you're operating in the US. The platform's really built and designed for a global audience. And a lot of our customers will operate across regions and across geographies as well. As a result of that, we see over $1.5 billion of trade going through the platform in a typical 12-month basis. And what that means in kind of real world terms is that we're processing over 1 million plus transactions per month for our customers. And that's really why, you know, some of the people we work with, as I say, specialist kind of subsea asset rental businesses, specialist plant businesses, why they trust us to really deliver an end-to-end solution for them and simplify their operations. So I think that's maybe enough about ProScope. I'm going to hand to Katie at this point to talk a little bit about why we're here today. Why are we speaking to you all today? Why are you all giving us your time today?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and so as we begin today's conversation, I kind of wanted to use this time to ground ourselves in the reality of what currently is happening in rental asset management, because even some small inefficiencies in the industry can snowball into massive operational and financial consequences. So we see on average that fleet utilization rates are at just 60 to 75%, and that equates to 25 to 40% of missed revenue. And that's not really due to a lack of demand, but due to inefficiencies in how equipment is scheduled, tracked, and returned. 10% of rental delays are lost due to logistical delays, and that's more than an operational hiccup. That's a lost opportunity, and it can often result in disjointed systems and also manual handoffs between functions like scheduling, dispatch, and billing. 65% of companies are struggling with multi-tier depreciation and asset valuation. So that's often made worse by siloed financial tools that don't talk to operational systems. And the results of that can often be inaccurate reporting and compliance risks. 82% are fighting an uphill battle just to recruit and retain qualified staff to manage deliveries, pickups, and service levels. And part of that struggle is due to the tools that they're handed. So when employees are stuck navigating outdated systems and chasing down information across platforms, that can lead to burnout and turnover. And then, of course, there's billing, which 75% of rental invoices contain errors. And that's often due to the complexity of managing pricing, usage, maintenance charges, and job costing all across fragmented processes. And so where everything really comes to a head is 50 to 70% of mid-sized firms are still relying on spreadsheets to manage all of their rental operations. And that's not just about convenience, it's really a core risk. So disparate systems, disconnected data, and manual workarounds are not only frustrating, but they really create real measurable financial loss. So that's really the heart of what we're going to focus on today is how ProScope brings that visibility, control, and automation to rental asset management by eliminating those silos and replacing spreadsheets with a single source of truth inside NetSuite. So with that note, I think, yeah, Jamie is going to talk a little bit more about spreadsheets.
But thank you very much, Katie. So
Yeah.
I'm not, I want to be transparent. I'm not here to hit on spreadsheets. As somebody who worked in industry, I at one point was married to my spreadsheets, especially from a QS perspective. So I'm not here to slander them, but that does kind of lead us to begin talking about and thinking about a couple of things. First of all, why are they needed? Well, they can easily handle complexity, or with the right level of knowledge, we can make them handle complexity, be that calculations, be that, the size of a project and the number of functions that are required within there, or the ability to quickly flex based on a rapidly evolving environment. And obviously that leads to some of the other things that are really good about them. The fact that everybody learns to use Excel or spreadsheets at such a young age now that it's accessible and user friendly. If you're bringing in new members of a team, it's very easy for them to pick up Excel and use it and be onboarded. It's number centric, and that's very powerful. Ultimately, we're in industries where we're looking at figures very, very often. Um, and they're flexible, but I think when we stop and we think about what's good about spreadsheets, it's also really leads us to what's bad about them. And I'm going to start by using myself as an example. So when I worked in industry, I worked for a specialist subcontractor in the surface treatment business. And I can tell you now that my costing spreadsheet and my estimating spreadsheet was very different to my two colleagues who were also putting together pricing for new projects we were tendering, because we all had our own way of doing things. And what that meant, and this was a conversation that I frequently had with my CFO, it meant that actually when it came to trusting the information from me or from my colleagues, it it was difficult to trust it, because nobody was preparing or estimating in the same way. It was open to interpretation. My view of what a project was going to cost was based on my calculation, whereas my colleagues was based on their calculation, and nothing was necessarily based in fact, how do we deliver this past project? Is this still the current pricing? So yes, they're accessible for individuals, but organization wide, that doesn't feed up or downstream. And that really is a problem when we're talking about, organizations who could be managing 1,000 plus assets. It's very challenging for us not to have everybody speaking from the same page. And it's about flexibility that becomes a weakness. If anybody can work their own way, as I said there, how do we trust that data? Um, the other thing, which I'm sure we've all done with Excel, is that duplicate entry. We've got our spreadsheet, it moves to the next division, they've got their own spreadsheet, and suddenly people are moving information from one place to another place. And ultimately that begins to impact on finances, it impacts on people's workload, and it's ultimately just very frustrating for people. But I think the biggest worry here is that not just can we not trust the data when everybody's working in silos, depending on what we're using our spreadsheets for, there's some real world impact, that ability to, or inability, I guess, would be a better description, to accurately track higher opportunities. If we're not winning every opportunity that we can be, we're reducing our utilization. Our fleet's sitting there unused, and that's fine if it's unused because we shouldn't have won a deal, but it's not fine if we've not won a deal because we lost track of it because it was in an Excel spreadsheet. Again, if our assets are going in and out and they're not going out on time and they're not coming back in on time, again, because we're tracking dates in Excel, then again, we're either increasing our cost, missing revenue. And that problem gets even worse if we're a business who use cross-hire, because when we're cross-hiring an asset, we're already reducing our potential margin on this. If we don't get that back on time, to lose a couple of days revenue for that asset's just inexcusable, really. And if that's coming from our systems, from the way we track things, it's it's very frustrating for business leaders, and I'm sure it's very frustrating for the team who are managing those assets as well. And ultimately, all of this, it comes down to that ongoing impact. We might lose one hire, but that's lost customers. We've got lost the opportunity to really impress them, to really show them what sets us apart from our competition, and to get that relationship, not just for the first time, but on an ongoing basis as well. And ultimately, when we look at this kind of spreadsheets, when we take a look at what's kind of good about spreadsheets and what's bad about spreadsheets, ultimately, they're one of the reasons that we find it harder to get paid on time. And ultimately, we're all about getting paid. I'm sure if I was to ask Katie, she'd be able to tell us a million other stories of conversations we've had where Excel's integral to people's businesses. Um, but as I said, we're not here to hate on spreadsheets. We completely appreciate there's a time and a place for them. But what does the world look like, if we don't have Excel? What does that single source of truth really look like? And I think, Katie, it would be great for you to just talk about some of the kind of conversations you're having with clients, and what we're suggesting to people that single source of truth can be.
Yeah, so when we talk about a single source of truth, we're really talking about like a connected system that removes the guesswork, the manual workarounds that a lot of rental businesses are dealing with today. So just wanted to kind of walk through a few of these areas in practice, starting with asset management. So we're talking about a comprehensive register that really gives your team full visibility into what you own, where it is, and what it's worth. So you can manage procurement, receipt, financials all in one place. And you're also easily able to access key information like location, pricing, shipping requirements, and lead times, but all from like a centralized view. For quoting and estimating, that's going to become much more streamlined. So you'll have a standardized process that draws from live asset records and agreements, ensuring that your quotes are both accurate and realistic. So whether you're quoting for inventory, systems, assets, or spares, or even maybe a combination, you can do that quickly and confidently. For sales and rental agreements, everything is going to be integrated, so there's not going to be any duplicated entry. All related documents are generated and stored centrally, so you'll benefit from that workflow-driven alerts that help your team stay on top of allocations and dispatches, keeping everything moving smoothly. For cross hire, rental shares, and spares, those are fully embedded in the rental process as well. So that means you can manage third-party equipment and internal shares seamlessly, and usage-based billing for spares as well. So that means no spreadsheets or any guesswork. And then for shipping and exporting, that's also going to be managed centrally. So we're not rekeying any data. Allocations are going to be made based off of live availability and even a skills matrix. So you know you're assigning the right people to the right jobs. And with unified contractor management, you're going to avoid any delays and disconnects. And then billing is another area where we see huge improvements. So that's all automated and driven by real-time project data. And you'll get live visibility into outstanding balances, and eliminate invoicing delays that often cause cash flow issues. With utilization reporting, you'll get that real-time insight into how your equipment is being used. So what's available, what's committed, and what's underperforming. So that'll help you lead to more faster, accurate billing and fewer internal queries. And then finally, our industry-specific financials give you the tools to handle revenue recognition, fixed asset management, and depreciation all within the same system. So it's going to be tailored for rental specifically. And that's really what our single source of truth looks like, bringing all of those functions together into one system to really drive clarity, accuracy, and control. And we'll see that in real time as we go throughout the demonstration with our use case a little bit later on.
And I think that's a really important point that you raised there, Katie, as well, is that single source of truth. Ultimately, what we can then do, because everything's integrated in a single solution, is can begin to look at our profit and loss by an asset, by a specific serialized asset. And that then feeds into things like when do we dispose of it, when do we buy alternatives. It allows us to be really granular because everything's in one single place to decide what decisions we need to take as an organization. We're acting on information, not instinct. And that's obviously going to lead to better outcomes for us as a business. So before I hand to Katie to jump into software, as a quick reminder, because I'm acutely aware that you've listened to me and Katie now for 25 minutes and we've told you a ton of things. Um, Hopefully somebody on the call's been keeping notes in a spreadsheet, but if I haven't, quick reminder of what that single solution looks like. It's really about that asset management, quoting and estimating for our rentals, getting those agreements set up one by one so that we can begin to bill those out. If we've got cross hire or rental share, being able to simplify that procurement, um, or simplify that billing share agreement. If we are moving things across borders, it's about being able to take the information that exists in the system and quickly generate our things like our EU kind of invoices if we need them for crossing borders in Europe and America, checking ECCN numbers. If we're renting out anything that's obviously a risk, doing things like our red flag questionnaires, our denied party questionnaires, the last thing we want to do is send something to a rogue operator, so making sure that we've got an audit trail of that in case we need it in the future. The important bit, because we want to get paid, so billing and automating that, getting our invoices out, be that weekly, daily, whatever our billing basis and our billing calculation is. Again, it doesn't always go right. We know that sometimes assets may break down, they may be delayed, so making sure we can apply the relevant concessions and adjustments where we need to. And once we've got all that information, that allows us to begin planning better, utilizing better, making informed procurement decisions that are driven by profit and loss for asset types, um, depreciation, current net book value, all of that good stuff. And then once that new asset is delivered, we fleet it back at the asset management. And so the cycle continues. But we've got clear visibility of not only what we've done, but why we've done it and the data that's there to back it up as well. So without any further hesitation, I'm going to hand over to Katie so we can have a look at what this all looks like in the real world. How do we actually manage our assets from start to finish in one system? So over to you, Katie.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Jamie. All right. So I should be sharing my screen now, so everyone should be able to see that we're logged into NetSuite/ProScope. Um, so now that we're logged into NetSuite/ProScope, we wanted to start off at our rental dashboard. So logging in, we're going to see a overview of all of the assets that we have and how and rental asset activity as well and how it pertains to our business. So just walking through a few of these portlets, first being our asset fleet. So this is going to show all of the assets that we have categorized by type and their availability. So you just get a good kind of breakdown of where everything is. We'll also take a look at the asset availability checker as we go later on in the demonstration today. So but you can see this from the main dashboard view as well. Additionally, we have our rental launchpad. So this is going to be key shortcuts to major stages of the rental asset lifecycle pertaining to specific sales orders. So we'll go through all of these stages through the demonstration today, but just did want to call out that you can access them directly from the dashboard as well. Scrolling down a bit here, we have our utilization graphs. So we have it categorized and broken down by asset type as well as serialized asset. And this is really just measuring the utilization of how many days this has been on rent for each category. So this is flexible as well. So if you did want to change this to, maybe weeks, months, even years for longer term rentals, you are able to adjust and measure utilization that way as well. But again, just a good visual and gives you visibility into what exactly is being utilized so you can make those strategic business decisions. And then scrolling down a bit further, we have our asset monthly revenue. So this is going to show just the revenue that's brought in by asset. So you get just more visibility into the financial impact that the rentals are having on the business as well. So now that we've gone through the rental dashboard a little bit, wanted to hop into the actual life cycle of the rental asset example. So to do that, we're going to start actually off by creating an opportunity. And again, this is going to be the point in the process where a customer has reached out to us and expressed just interest in renting an asset from us. So we haven't made any commitments or anything yet. This is just going to measure the potential pipeline information. So I've gone ahead and pre-populated an opportunity here, just expressing interest from our demo customer for a potential rental. And just wanted to take note of the status here as in discussion. We'll see later on how this may change based on just kind of how the scope of this goes. But as of currently, we have just an in discussion opportunity. The next stage of the process is going to be to issue a quote or proposal for this customer. And to do that, we're going to just go ahead and create a quote opportunity. And it's going to be blank right now, so it's going to be just have a placeholder item. But to actually add the scope of which items and the amounts, we're going to utilize our sales UI. So clicking into that here, um, I've pre-loaded some, just an example item and component. So this is going to be where we actually enter the scope of what's being rented out and for how long. So in our example today, we're going to go rent a generator for 30 days. And just wanted to note here that the ProScope asset is going to pull in specific information, such as our pricing here. And you do have the flexibility to adjust different price levels. So if you have, maybe different prices based on the type of asset or the customer, you're able to easily, flexibly change what that price level is. So we're going to stick with our base price for here, which is going to be $50 a day for 30 days at a total of 1,500. In addition to this asset, we have a component added on this as well. So a component can be either optional or mandatory. And what that is really is just an add-on or an attachment to a specific asset. So in this example, we have a 20-foot electric cable that accompanies this generator that we're charging for $10 a day for that 30-day rent, that same 30-day rental period. So we'll see this item, this asset and component kind of travel or throughout the process and how that translates to the quote as well. So once we've added all of our items and components that we're going to be renting out as line items, we'll go ahead and save this. And once we've saved it, it'll then be reflected as the total and line items on our quote. But the next step before we actually issue this to the customer is going to be to design how it looks and the information that's included. So to do that, we're going to go into our PDF quote designer. And this quote PDF designer tool is going to enable us to design different templates of how we want this quote to appear and the information we want to include on it. So as we scroll down here, you'll see it's extremely user-friendly. It's all click, not code. So you're able to easily adjust, kind of, for example, here, what's hidden or visible. You're also able to add diagrams, images, text, etc. So you can really make this a detailed quote, including a lot of information. But it just kind of depends on how simple or complex you want it to be, you want to make it. Because when you save a template, you're able to use it in the future, so you're not having to start from scratch every time. So once you get it the way that you like, you're able to save that and use it as a default. We can go ahead and preview here what this quote is actually going to look like before we send. So here we've just kept it very simple with our key company information and customer information, as well as that main rental asset and component. Once we've generated the quote and sent that to the customer, the next step is going to be, we'll hear back from the customer saying, either yes, we want to go ahead with this rental, or no, we're not going to. So if the answer is no, and if they come back and do not want to go forward with the rental, you could go ahead and just change the status of the opportunity to closed lost. So you still have that solid audit trail of the customer being interested and issuing that quote. It just won't be active in the system. However, if the customer comes back and does want to go forward with the actual rental, the next step will be to transfer this quote / proposal into a sales order. And so we'll do that. And once we do that and we transfer this into a sales order, you'll notice that all of the line items from the quote / estimate are going to be automatically loaded onto the sales order. So we're not having any duplicate entry or taking time to have to, kind of rekey information. But we'll go ahead and save this sales order here. And after we save this sales order, the next step is going to be to actually check what assets are going to be available so that we can assign specific assets to this rental. So we'll go ahead and refresh this. In the background, it's going to be just kind of updating the asset rental operations for the transactions. Perfect. So now that we've gone ahead and saved that sales order, we'll go ahead and check the asset availability. So the asset availability checker is going to show us all the assets in real time of what's available versus what's booked. So since we have our generator on this on the sales order already, it'll automatically filter that for that. So we can see all of the assets for our generator that we have in our fleet, as well as what's available. So it looks like we only have one available here. So that'll be what we assign to our actual rental or to our sales order. So going into our managed rentals here, we'll go ahead and assign our assets. And once we going down or from our drop down here, we'll see that asset that was available is the only one that's going to populate because only available assets are going to populate in this list. So we'll go ahead and assign that asset and confirm. So once we do this, it'll take that off rent as available and assign it to this rental specifically. Additionally, there's a couple other options I did want to talk about here that are not the assignment of assets, but one being our request transfer. So the request transfer is really going to be essentially if, we go back to that point about availability, if we decided actually one of the assets that we want to use, we know is available, but it may be just sitting in a different location or subsidiary, we can then request a transfer from that screen to start the process of requesting to ship the asset to put on this order. And then requesting a third party rental. This is going to be if we ever want to do a cross rental and raise a purchase order to a third party, we can request a third party rental from there and kick off the process to go away and source that asset from a vendor. Today we're going to keep it simple though and just assign that asset that was available and kind of take that through the process. So now that we've assigned that asset, the next step here is going to be filling out our red flag questionnaire. So clicking into our sales order here, this is going to be the part of the process where we've assigned the specific asset and we're inspecting it and preparing it for shipment. So the red flag questionnaire is really just a quality check, saying, kind of just making sure that we are checking that the asset is in good working condition before we are preparing to ship it out. This is something that can be turned on or off. However, it is standard practice. We would recommend keeping it in just as that extra level of quality control. So we'll go ahead and respond to this red flag questionnaire as yes, this item is in working condition. And once we do that, we'll go back into our manage rentals and actually prepare the item for shipment. So now we'll see the ship order item or the ship order button available that wasn't previously because we filled out that red flag questionnaire. And clicking into our ship order function, this is going to be where we actually mark what we want to add in the shipment and create that shipment. So before we complete and save the rentals, or we'll click into the shipment record as it's currently being created. So we'll go ahead and refresh this and see that shipment record linked directly here. So we'll click into that so you can see what was created behind the scenes. And on the shipment record, prior to, finalizing the shipment as going out and or completing it, we're also able to add dimensions as well. So if you wanted to add additional information, kind of outlining what's being sent, you're able to do that just to kind of have that solid audit trail as well. But we'll go ahead and complete this shipment, which is essentially starting the rental clock for these items and sending it out to the customer. So now that we've completed our shipment, we'll take a look at concessions as well. So now at this point in the process, the item has been shipped out to the customer. However, prior to that or during that, we may want to grant concessions for that item and component. And to do that, we're going to go into our concessions UI. And what this is really just going to be almost like a Gantt chart type view of the items that we have included on our sales order and allow us to add discounts or specific concessions for those items and components. So this could be for a variety of reasons. Maybe the equipment has broken down. Perhaps it's a customer gesture, or there's maybe a delay to and from the transit site or delivery site. Regardless, though, you're able to, kind of put in a discount rate for a specific amount of days and apply that to the rental overall in the sales order. And what this will do is effectively create a discount line on the sales order, so you're able to see it separated out. But that's concessions. If we did want to apply concessions, yeah, again, it's going to translate to the sales order. and then further for invoicing. But now that we've shipped the asset, we have looked at concessions. We'll take a look at managing rental invoices as well. So going to our rental invoice management portion, this is going to be when we actually issue or find sales orders that can be invoiced to clients. So here I filtered for the client that we are currently looking at, and all of the associated invoices, or this criteria search is going to find the asset that was put on rent in between now and the bill date. So you have the option also, if you have multiple invoices, to consolidate those invoices as well for one customer. So you have flexibility there as well. But right now we're just gonna, for simplicity, generate an invoice for the sales order that we've been looking at. So we'll go ahead and generate that invoice. Once we generate that invoice, we will see it in our list of just standard invoices. We can click into that invoice that we've created. And we will then just follow the standard NetSuite invoicing process. So from here, we can accept payment for this. And you'll also see, again, that item and component broken down as well on the invoice. But we'll accept payment, save that, and post to the appropriate accounts receivable that's been noted. And then that will process and post as such. Now that we've processed the invoice and associated payments, talk just very briefly about rental returns. So when it's time, either before or after invoicing to return a rental asset, it's very simple to do. You just will search for, go to the appropriate section in ProScope for rental returns, find the appropriate associated sales order. It'll populate with the item that's on rent. You'll select that item and then just designate the quantity that's to be returned. Additionally, if there are situations where maybe you have damage, like it's damaged or lost, or there's some other situation that you want to adjust the status of the item, you're able to note that here and it will automatically update and reflect on the asset status. But that takes us through rentals from end to end. So I will stop sharing my screen and turn it back over to you, Jamie, to reshare.
And thank you very much, Katie. So we've now had a quick look at how the product works. We've spoke a bit about the challenges that you're likely facing. I think where we go next from here, or kind of a next step, I think, is for us to begin to answer some of the questions that we've seen come through in chat as well. So I think I'll reintroduce Christine just for ease, who we all met at the beginning. Christine, everybody, in case you're wondering, by the way, is our marketing director and the brains behind all of the tech for us. So Christine, I think we've had a couple of questions come through in the Q&A.
We have. We have. So the first question is, can it handle operated hires?
It certainly can. That's a very good question. And if you are placing assets out on hire that come with crews to operate them, staff to service them, or even if they come with inventory items from kind of a health and safety perspective, you may be putting a crane out on hire that comes with a certain basket, crew of 2 men, a spotter and an operator, plus some safety equipment. All of that can be combined into a single rental and billed, be that daily, hourly, weekly, whatever that billing basis may be.
Okay. Next question. Our rental fleet includes several hundred assets, from standard equipment to high value items, and we deal with a mix of rental.
Oh, I think after I introduced Christine as the technology brain, I think we've lost you, Christine, slightly.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now? Or
We can, yeah.
apologies. So I'll try and read this again. Our rental fleet includes several hundred assets from standard equipment to high value items, and we deal with a mix of rental durations, maintenance needs, and customer requirements. What kind of asset volume and operational complexity can ProScope realistically support?
So that's a really good question. And in terms of asset volume, I don't want to say that there's an upper limit, because that always sets us up for somebody to challenge us and try and find that upper limit. But one of our largest customers currently manages a fleet of 42,000 assets globally. Um, in terms of complexity, we would probably want to have a conversation with you to understand that in a bit more detail before giving a detailed answer there. But in reality, anything crossing borders, denied party checklists, as we spoke about, multiple kind of team members and crewing members to operate that asset, um, complicated billing bases, so it might be kind of an 888 type runtime agreement. All of that can be handled in platform very easily. Likewise for maintenance and inspections, that can be handled through the ProScope FormScope module as well.
Okay. How does ProScope deal with internal rentals versus external? We often rent between divisions as well as to external customers. So curious to know how that's supported.
Yeah, that's again a really good question, and it's probably another topic that me and Katie could spend another 45 minutes speaking about. But the short answer is there's a couple of ways we can handle it. NetSuite is renowned for how well it handles intercompany elimination and consolidation anyway. So it could be done in a very simple, traditional sales order, purchase order method between departments, between subsidiaries. So a very, very straightforward, simple way to do that, and we can automate that simply by placing it on hire as a customer of one subsidiary from another. But what we tend to see with internal rentals is actually that tends to be more of a project cost control type conversation. Um, and actually, at that point, it becomes, is an internal rental the right solution, or is it actually we're just assigning an internal asset to a different division and we need to capture that cost? So it'd be really good to speak with the party who asked that question in more detail. But certainly there's multiple ways we can handle that depending on what it is they're looking to achieve.
Okay, next one in is, can you schedule the delivery via specific delivery vehicles?
You certainly can. That's again a really good question. So the mobilization and shipment record, that can be directly tied to its own asset to deliver that. So yes, certainly can link that to a specific delivery vehicle if needed.
And is this, I assume we mean the rentals functionality, but is this standard ProScope functionality or an additional subscription item?
So it is an additional subscription item. So what we're speaking about today is our rental sales module. So if you are a current customer with the core platform, then it won't be included within your subscription. It is a specialist module that's added on.
Are we able to track things like inspections, certifications, or ongoing compliance requirements while an asset is out on rent?
We certainly can. So again, there's a few ways to do this. One of the really powerful tools of NetSuite is this concept of safe searches, which can be used to drive reminders within the dashboard and notifications as well. So when we create an asset in ProScope, we also track the inspection dates, the certification and expiry dates, etc., so that they come through as reminders so we know when they're going to expire. When it comes to actually completing those inspections, we do at ProScope offer a mobile application that allows for inspection, quality management, and HSEQ within the field. What we can then do is we can then drive those service requests directly out to the mobile app so our engineer can complete those inspections. And because we're talking about a single source of truth and a single database, we have that clear 360-degree view and picture of everything.
Okay. How does the asset management function link with NetSuite project management? Our projects include asset rental and other services which are invoiced together. Can this all be seamlessly integrated?
That's probably
Yep. So the answer is
oh, sorry, Katie, you go ahead.
yeah. So yeah, I think we were on the same page though, Jamie. It's technically well, we're one of the beauties of being native to NetSuite and Suite projects is everything is seamlessly integrated. So when it comes to projects and linking rentals specifically, that's very seamless. And we have customized ProScope records when it comes to, tracking specific assets, but it's still all tied to the project and on the same platform.
I think it would be really good if whoever that question was from, if they want to reach out separately to myself and Katie, because there's a lot of nuances to that. As Katie said, the short answer is yes. Um,
Mhm.
the longer answer is I would be really, really keen to have a conversation with you and explore that in a bit more detail.
Okay, next question then. What happens when an item comes back? Can we log damage, update the asset condition, or trigger servicing workflows before it's available again?
Yep. So yeah, absolutely. So when an item comes back in ProScope, you can log any damage, also the item's condition, trigger servicing workflows. So you have the ability to take it off rent and mark it as unavailable until it passes inspection or servicing. Um, and yeah, that's just more of like a quality control, and it's making sure that the equipment is made available for future use, but also accurately reporting the status. So we took a look at that at the end, more the tail end of the demo, but yeah, the answer is yes.
And just to expand on that, by the way, we have one of our customers who jumps to mind specifically that when they do the return shipment, as Katie showed during the demo, what that will do is it'll create a service workflow within the ProScope mobile application and the ProScope core platform. That goes away and creates a project for them so that we can record time and materials and cost. And then we can actually bundle all of that together as evidence of the cost of repairing that damage and include all of that in the final invoice. And that's all seamlessly integrated together just by us saying that there was damage when we bring that back.
That's all the questions.
Excellent. Perfect. Well, in that case, just to kind of summarize and wrap up, um, yes, we hated on spreadsheets a little bit, but we understand that they are indeed a necessary evil at times. However, they also unfortunately can lead to errors and other problems. Hopefully, as we've gone from there and spoke about some of the kind of revenue leakage that businesses see as a result of disjointed systems, we've seen what a single source of truth can look like, how that works in process and in platform. In the space of less than 10 minutes, Katie was able to quote an asset, select that asset from only our assets that were available, issue it to a customer, get it to a customer, make concessions, and get it back. And all of that was done with just a couple of clicks of a button. So hopefully we've seen it's really seamless. We were scheduled to finish at in 7 minutes time, so myself and Katie and Christine will stay around in case there's any last minute questions come in. If not, though, we thank everybody for their time and their attendance. If anybody does want to schedule some one-on-one time with myself and Katie, feel free. There's nothing we like more than speaking to current NetSuite customers and potential NetSuite customers and sharing our expertise. So please do feel free to reach out to us. But otherwise, thank you everybody for your time. If you're in the UK and Europe, I hope you all have a great evening. If you're in North America, I hope we were an enjoyable start to your afternoon and your day. And if you're anywhere else in the world, thank you very much for joining us at what I can only imagine is a rather unreasonable time.
Thank you, everyone.